Hey guys, welcome to the God Case of Wanderlust podcast. My name is Lydia, and I have had wanderlust or a desire to travel coursing through my veins since pretty much birth. So I created this podcast to share my travel experiences as well as other guests to inspire you to embark on your own travel dreams and hopefully do so mindfully and more sustainably. One thing to point out is that I was raised in the United States, so my worldview is based in Western ideology, but I aim to expand and grow my perspective through experiencing new places and having meaningful conversations with people of all backgrounds. So, if you share my passion for traveling, let's journey around the world together, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the God Case of Wanderlust podcast. I'm here today with a special guest. Her name is Ellie. Ellie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm from the UK, originally from England, from the northwest, but I've been traveling for honestly about 5 years, on and off, but mostly traveling and on the road somewhere. So I don't actually spend a lot of time at home anymore, but that's where I'm from originally.
Amazing. And I reached out to you via Workaway, which is a work exchange platform, and you're currently an ambassador for them, so I think that's pretty cool. Um, but before we get into work exchanges and all of that, do you mind telling a bit like how or what got you into traveling? Like what sparked your wanderlust?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really sure. I didn't expect to be in this position now, traveling like I do. I did everything typically like childhood wise, school wise. I went to school, I graduated, and then I went to university and I got my degree in microbiology. So I was very much going down the standard student work route and expected to just find a job. But as I got to the end of uni, I really wanted a little bit of a break at least. And I had a bit of background with German, and I felt like I would just go there, practice a bit of German, have a break, and then come back and, I don't know, settle down, have a job, all the normal stuff. But I don't know. While I was there, I guess I just kind of got trapped. I got caught with this travel bug, and I don't know. That was the start of it. It was my first work away as well, my first work exchange. And yeah, I think I expected to go for maybe a month or two, and I was at least sort of 5 months or more. And while I was there, I planned many more trips, and it kind of just went from there. So it was a bit unexpected, to be honest, but yeah, that was a start at least. Yeah,
Wow. Okay, 1 month turned into five. Okay.
kind of.
Love that. So, how
Yeah.
did you find out about Workaway in the first place? Because not everyone knows about work exchanges.
Yeah, that's true. I'm pretty sure I just felt desperate to find something. I knew I was going to be on my own, which scared me a little bit. I wasn't at the time much of a outgoing, confident person. I just wanted a change. And I'm pretty sure I just Googled and Googled and Googled like some kind of exchange, like projects. I just needed a way in, like to get something in Germany where I felt I'm not going to be alone, but I'm also going to push myself. Like I was trying to find something. And yeah, I just stumbled. I genuinely did just stumble on it, which I think is a bit rare. Like I always hear people hearing it from other travelers and stuff, but no, I really did just find it. And I found this family on there who I felt like they matched up with me a bit. They were this unschooling, alternative vegan family, which suited me in a way, I suppose, or at least it interested me. And I just thought, let's give it a go. Like, there really was not much more to it than that. Yeah.
Wow, I mean, that's wonderful how it all turned out and how it kind of serendipitously found you almost.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to share any like takeaways that you got from that first work exchange? Anything you learned about yourself or work exchanges or travel in general?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I'm glad I did it. Let's say I wouldn't be here now in Australia traveling over here if I hadn't have done that first one. So it definitely is a bit of a reminder to push yourself sometimes, for sure. Like, I didn't see myself going traveling on my own. And yeah, Germany's not far from the UK. I get that. It's not a big deal. But the first time you travel, it doesn't have to be far. It can be in your own country. It can be around the corner. It's still just putting yourself out there and challenging yourself a little bit and getting out your comfort zone. I think that's really important. Even now, like having traveled for a longer period, I still put myself out of my comfort zone all the time. Like it's, every day or every week there's new things where I'm like, And you'd think as someone who's traveled a lot on their own now and with others, but on my own a lot, that I'd be comfortable with whatever happens, but that's not true. I can be in a country and be scared of getting the public bus on my own, like it's not as simple as you think. So it really is a matter of keeping on pushing yourself, in my opinion. Like, yeah, that's really important for sure for everyone.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's the magical thing that travel does is teaches you how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. What
Yeah,
advice would you have specifically for solo female travelers? Because I feel like there's so many women out there who are too afraid to travel because of the very fact that they're solo. And it's very valid because there's so much stigma out there for, if you're alone, it's dangerous. But I mean, you
yeah.
did it. I've done it. So many people have done it. What advice would you share?
Yeah, a lot of people do it, and it's not to say that the stigma shouldn't be there, or at least the kind of extra caution that people are aware of taking. Like that's real, that's valid, and there are situations that people aren't always comfortable in, and it's different for everyone, of course. I, for example, have never been in such a bad situation that I felt really uncomfortable, which is probably just fortunate, and things have fallen the right way for me. But you definitely need common sense, at least a bit of it. Often it does come down to that. If you have a gut feeling that just seems wrong, just don't do it. There's another opportunity around the corner. You don't need to do something that doesn't feel at least 90% right. Of course, like I say, push yourself and step out your comfort zone. But if you feel unsafe or just really unsure, just leave it. There's something else better that you can do. You don't need to put yourself in that kind of position. Um, and I would also say, at least for me, I found, for example, Workaway, the website that I use to travel and to do exchange projects, very helpful because even as a solo traveler, I would look for projects where they take on a lot of volunteers. So I would be traveling solo, but once I was at the destination, I would be with very much like minded people. There'd be a group of us, we'd be on the same page. We'd all picked this project, which shows we have at least something in common. We've all chosen to go to an animal rescue or to build a community, sustainable, whatever it might be, like all these little things, it adds up. And that's also how I've met a lot of my friends now. That's always the start of something. And most of my friends now are in these random countries where I've been, not at home. Like I say, I'm never at home anymore. I don't have a big base there except my family. So yeah, I think it's you can travel solo, but it's important to understand that solo traveling doesn't mean being on your own all the time. Like, yeah, you might catch a flight on your own, you might take a bus on your own, but you can go to a hostel with cool other young different people. You can go to a workaway project or whatever, a different volunteer exchange project where there's going to be a lot of other people doing what you want to do, and with the same ideas. And it's really inspiring as well to meet other people on that page. Gives you ideas, it helps you plan. It's, yeah, I really like that aspect of being on my own, meeting new people. It makes you more open for sure.
Hmm. Completely agree. I think that's such a good point that solo does not mean you're alone. And on the contrary, I think it makes you even more like you said, open to make more connections than you would if you were with someone else. So it's just
Definitely.
all about like mindset, how willing you are to meet other people if that's something you even want to do. Would you say in your experience it's kind of easy for you to make friends in new places?
Yeah, yeah, I would. Hostels, like I say, it's a lot of people doing exactly what you're doing, and a lot of them are also on their own and they're looking for people to make friends with. If not hostels, you can go local bars. Unless you're really putting yourself in the middle of nowhere, you're likely to bump into people doing what you're doing. Yeah, it's cool what we're doing, but it's not that unique. There's a lot of us doing it these days, which is really exciting. And so the chances are you will bump into someone on your kind of page who wants to make friends, even if it's just friends for that weekend. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can just be, company for the week, for the weekend, or it can be something longer term. It just depends who you click with and how it goes. I feel like it's hard, but you have to not put that pressure on yourself to find friends. You kind of have to let it happen, and it will if you're in the right mindset. If you're open, like you just said, if you're on your own and open to seeing people, just say hi. What's the worst that'll happen? They say hi, and that's it, and that's okay. You just said hi to someone. It's not a bad thing, and there'll be someone else that comes along and they want to talk or they want to go for a drink or for some food. I don't know. It's, yeah, if that makes sense. You just gotta try it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
the art of letting things happen.
yeah,
That's
I
that's a
suppose.
beautiful way to put it. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's really great advice because there is a certain pressure if you're in that mindset, like I have to meet people, like how am I going to make
Yeah,
friends in this new place? Like if you put that pressure on yourself, it's just going to create unnecessary stress. And it doesn't have to be. It could really
yeah,
just be if I'm meant to connect with someone, then that connection will happen regardless of
yeah,
whether I force it or not or
yeah.
because I didn't force it.
Yeah,
Um
I agree. Like when I started, I would plan like down to the day what I would do, and I've just realized the plans never work. It's the same. If you have that pressure that you need to be here, you're not going to get there. Of course, some things you have to plan, you know, you got to get your bus, you got to cross borders or whatever it is. But a lot of things you can just let them be and they will work out. Like what's meant to be will be. What doesn't happen, and that's okay. And it took me a long time to realize this for sure. And as I say, I still have wobbles and bad days. Um, but the more you just let it be, it will be, and it will be fine. And stuff works out for a reason, I think. I don't know. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with that mindset. I I think something that travel teaches you as well is just kind of going with the flow rather than trying to
100%.
control
Yeah,
the entire situation.
yeah.
Can you recall some of your favorite travel experiences? Doesn't have to be work exchanges, maybe just a cool hostel that you stayed in that you wanted to share.
Yeah. I've stayed in a few. I suppose one of them, it wouldn't be somewhere I spent too long because it was a bit full on, but in Budapest, I think it was a year or so back, maybe 2 years. I spent, I don't know, say a week or something at a hostel, yeah, in Budapest. And I think it's probably the hostel where I've made the most friends. Like I say, it was a party hostel, so it's not for everyone. It's not for me most of the time, but at that moment it felt right, and we went there. And yeah, I really met so many people. I mean, we were going out and, you know, having a few drinks and chatting with people. So, of course, you make friends. But a lot of these people are friends that I'm still in touch with now, rather than just, you know, a week long little friendship that you say bye and that's it. Like, they're people I still am in touch with and that I've met up with after, you know, in other countries, in other places. And that's, yeah, it'll always be special, I suppose, the memories that I have from Budapest, even though it was a bit, yeah, like I say, partying is not what you want to be doing all the time for your money's sake and just for your own sake, of course. But every now and then, it's really a good way just to go meet some people, to put yourself out there again and just try something a bit different. Go and see what a city has to offer. I often, to be honest, don't spend too much time in big cities. But Budapest is really nice, and I do feel it offers a bit of everything, like some older culture, but also a bit of a newer, younger scene for people who just want to go and see some nightlife and see what's going on. Like there's everything, and that's what I liked. Like I stayed there, you know, a little bit longer because I could do stuff in the day and enjoy the nights. It wasn't just we're going out tonight and then we sleep all day. You know, it wasn't just this kind of bad routine. um, yeah, it's yeah. The people I met there for sure is always going to be a special memory. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think I've shared that tip before in a previous episode, like to just stay in a party hostel for a day, 2 days, just to get that social butterfly energy out of your system, I guess, and to
yeah.
really kickstart like meeting people on your trip when you're solo, and then move to a more like quiet hostel to
Yeah, you
get
can
more
do
sleep.
both. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah.
And then, what about some of your favorite work exchanges? Because you've done quite a few. So yeah, would
Yeah.
you want to say any highlights of those?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of different ones actually. I think latterly, like more recently, the ones I've done, I've kind of narrowed it down to what I really enjoy, which tends to be animal rescue. I work a lot at, or volunteer a lot at animal sanctuaries, and that's really what is kind of my passion at the moment. But I've done all sorts. I've built like mud houses in Bulgaria, you know. I've helped reshape bits of land in the mountains in France, like all sorts of random cool stuff. But I have to say, the one um, where for one I've spent the longest time, and for two is just yeah a really special place for me is a pig rescue sanctuary in Ireland. And I think, again, I went there with the intention of staying a month, maybe two. And I think first time round I stayed, it wasn't a year, but it was getting on for a year. It was maybe 10 months or something. I don't remember. And then I went back for another like 6 months, a year or so later. And again, the connections I have with both the people, but also the pigs, genuinely, from there. it's really, really, really cool. Like I learned so much, and that was kind of my first proper animal rescue exchange, and it inspired me to do a lot more and to kind of get to what I'm doing now. Um, and yeah, it's just the stuff you can learn if you're in the right place with the right people who want to show you, and other volunteers who, as I say, are on your kind of page and doing the same thing. It's really incredible what you can learn. And as well, like I kind of say with a lot of my things, I've gone in expecting to stay for a short amount of time, but because I've chosen to perhaps not book my return ticket or not book my next ticket, I'm really flexible to be able to stay longer. And that ties back into kind of letting it be and see what happens and just not putting an end date on things. See how it goes, and you can always extend your stays. And I think that really helps because you never know. You can have high hopes for somewhere and it might not be what you want, or you can really, just think, oh, it's a quick stop off, but it turns out to be amazing and you want to stay longer. And I think, yeah, not putting an end date on it, trying to keep yourself flexible as you can within reason is definitely helpful, and I try to do that still now all the time. I don't like to plan far ahead. A week ahead is enough for me, a couple of weeks max, and other than that I just let it be and see. And when it's time to leave, it's time to leave, and you make that work. Yeah.
Wow, okay, 10 months in one place. You thought you would only be spending like a couple months. So, can you
Yeah.
explain how that even works? Like, do you live off your suitcase? Do you just like basically buy what you need there? Like, explain kind of the logistics. And what
Yeah,
does your
that's true.
family think?
Oh, my family are used to it now. I think when I first set off, they didn't expect this either, but they're used to this now. I go, I come, and so long as I'm happy and keep a little bit of contact, it works for them. So that's fine. But yeah, this kind of place, because it relies a lot on volunteers, and it's the same with a lot of places I've been. They often have like a wardrobe of volunteer clothes, so that saved me a lot of money in having to go shopping when I was realized I was going to stay longer. And because it was a lot of like dirty, muddy work, like out in the fields with pigs and literally, in the mud, all of that, you can't keep clean. And so we all just threw on scruffy clothes. You don't care what you look like when you're doing something like this. It's not about you. It's about who you're doing it for, the animals, essentially, in this case. And yeah, it just worked. Like, I don't know. As I say, if you're open to staying somewhere, it can work. And I suppose, yeah, Ireland wasn't at all far from England if I needed to go home or if something happened but it just worked. It just worked. People came, people left, other volunteers, I mean, some stayed long as well, a few months or longer. And it felt right, I suppose, is what it is. Like, it just, yeah, I didn't want to leave. And I got asked as well if I could, step up and help with training other volunteers and taking a better role there, just voluntarily. And so I did. It just, things kind of slotted into place, I suppose. And I was like, I'm happy, why leave? Why leave? Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Can you recall like a certain memory, like key memory that happened during that experience that you're willing to share?
Yeah. So actually, the second time I went there, which was not last Christmas, the one before, I went. They always struggle for volunteers in the winter because it's even colder, even muddier, even wetter. And so they often get a lot of returning volunteers at that time. So I went back for that, that hard Christmas period. Again, I only meant to go for literally December, but I stayed till March and April and beyond. I don't know. Anyway, um, just before I got there, they had rescued several pregnant mum pigs who'd been abandoned, and they were not in a good way, of course. That's why they came to us. And yeah, it was Christmas Eve, and one of the mums suddenly started having the babies. And so this whole Christmas, the whole memory is just piglets. Like, this mum started having babies, and it was a complicated pregnancy. We had to help a lot. We had to really, they didn't all make it, the piglets. It wasn't, all amazing, but still, to be there and to be able to witness this natural birth and the mum just in a comfortable space, doing it in her own time and blah blah blah, it's really special. And to share it with other volunteers who were there for the same reason and wanted to help. We stayed up all night. We were it got to 6 a.m. the next morning, and me and my friend who was there, who I met there, and we were shivering. We were a little bit delusional. We'd been there all night and didn't really know what time it was anymore. But we just did it, and it's really, really cool to look back on the photos of how tiny they are now, and then to see them grow into happy pigs who just live there free. is really, really, really cool now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that seems like such a precious moment. Okay, so what insider advice would you have, being, a seasoned work exchange professional now? Like, what tips would you share for newer travelers looking to find and prepare for a work exchange?
Sure. I would say that you can never ask too many questions beforehand. So when you find a place you want to go, just go ahead and ask all that you want to ask. Make yourself feel at ease. If you don't get sufficient answers back to feel comfortable, that's a sign to not go, in my opinion. Like if they want volunteers and they want it to work, they need to put their effort in as well. It's not just you arranging everything. This should be a very much two-way thing. And I think, yeah, if until you've asked enough questions to feel satisfied and to feel ready to go there, don't commit to anything. Don't put yourself there. Just wait and see and figure it out. You can ask simple things. Like, for example, as I say, when I'm traveling alone, I look for workaways that have several volunteers at a time, so I know I'm not going to be on my own once I'm there. But you can also double check. You can ask, when I'm due to come, do you have a few other volunteers, or am I the only one at the moment, and this kind of thing? Because sometimes they say we host 6 volunteers, but maybe at this moment they only have 1 or 2, and it's worth asking, because if you're looking for a project where there's a group of you and you turn up and there's 1 or 2 of you, you're not going to get out of it what you wanted, and it's not worth it for you or for them. If you're not happy, you're not going to give them your all and give them what they want, and it's just not going to be a valuable exchange, I suppose. And so it's not worth it for them or for you. And I think, like I say, you really can't ask too many questions. Simple things, you can ask about the living arrangements, you can ask anything. It's never too much. They should be prepared to make sure that you're okay with this. I know it's all voluntary and it's all, you have to put a bit of trust and it's a bit of a leap of faith. Sometimes you do feel like you're stepping a bit into the unknown, but it doesn't need to be as scary as it might be. And I also find that choosing places to go that have reviews from previous volunteers is very helpful. I always leave a review of a place that I've been to, because I know how valuable it is for me when I read someone else's reviews. And so I always look at them, and you can get a bit of a vibe from them. Like, you really can, if they've got a string of positive ones within reason, you can, it gives you that bit more confidence to go with it. But if there's a few things that you're not sure about, either ask about them or just leave it. Like, yeah, simple as that, in a way, I suppose. Ask questions and really get a feel for it before you commit to anything, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And then how exactly do you search for work exchanges? Like, because there is a filter option to kind of narrow down results, because there are quite a lot in some destinations. So how do you really narrow down your choices?
Yeah, it's hard, especially early on for me when I traveled and I didn't really know kind of what path I was taking with where I wanted to volunteer. As I say, I've done a lot of different kind of workaways, and I feel initially I was just picking a country and I was just scrolling and seeing something that, caught my eye. Whereas now I can search for rescue or animals or something nature related, a bit of outdoor kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, it definitely helps if you have a bit of a path that you're following, and you can search for, yeah, whatever it may be. Some people search for, like woodwork. You want to practice some woodwork skills. It can be as random as that. You have to realize as well how many different workaway projects or possibilities there are out there. Like, some of them are very niche. You can search very particular things, and there might well be something just for you. Like, Portugal has so many like yoga, meditation, outdoorsy kind of places, which you wouldn't necessarily think you'll find as like a voluntary project like that, but you really can. Like, there's so much out there. Like, it's worth just searching your interest. Obviously, if you've not got a specific path, you're going to have to be more broad. You're going to have to look, and you're going to have to try a few before you find what maybe suits you. But otherwise, just yeah, give it a go. Search your interest, search your hobbies. People like, help on hobby farms with horse riding and stuff. That's a separate side to animal rescue. It's different. Or, oh, there's so much. I don't know. There's so much. Yeah, you can search whatever.
And I guess to go back to the other thing you said, your other piece of advice is to kind of just let things find you, because things do tend to work out. And then just some wrap up questions. What is a special place in your heart that you haven't already mentioned?
Turkey, actually. I'd forgotten about Turkey. So I went to Turkey a couple of years ago as well. I don't know. I lose track of the timeline. And this was a solo trip. I went completely on my own, and I was quite nervous at the time. It was, I think, the furthest I'd been alone, and so I was. Yeah, it was a couple of flights, a couple of stopovers, and all this stuff, and that always stresses me out when it's more than just one straight flight, and I'm at the point I need to be at the end. Then I'm worried, and especially in a country where there's perhaps more of a language barrier. This is also stuff to be aware of when you're on your own. It's definitely harder. You don't have maybe a buddy with you who you can bounce your worries off. So it's hard. But anyway, I wanted to go, and I'd found a Workaway. So at least I had that lined up. I needed to get there, but I had that lined up. And so, yeah, I took my flights, I took a bus, then I took a taxi. By the time I arrived, it was the middle of the night, and I was in the middle of the nowhere because this was an organic, sustainable kind of permaculture farm place where I was going. So we were really out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, I just got this taxi, gave him some cash. I didn't even understand what the cash was yet, how much money it was. I just gave him some and got out. And luckily, someone obviously came to meet me. Um, yeah, basically, yeah, it was a permaculture farm, and there were so many volunteers there, and we lived in this really cool big house together. It was just for the volunteers, and there were like stray puppies every day that came to greet us in the morning and walk to work with us, and we really formed such a close group of friends. There was, obviously, I'm English. There was a French girl, Swiss girl, Turkish girl, another English guy, a guy from Jordan, all over the place, and we all just happened to be there. And there were others as well, of course, but that was our really close group for a while. And what I really like about my experience there is that not only did we spend the time at the Workaway together, but we went on to plan more trips, and a few of us traveled on elsewhere. We crossed into Georgia, and we met up again with other people, and it just went on. It became a bit of an extended trip, and we kept bumping into, and it was really cool in that sense because none of us had an onward flight or anything. We all were totally flexible for that period, and so we just planned more stuff together, and that's what I really like about it when I leave it flexible like that. Yeah, it's really special. Yeah.
Wow, that seems like an incredible trip. And then, what is a memorable meal that you've had during your travels?
Hmm. Okay. Well, I'm vegan, which adds a lot of differences when you travel, especially because a big part of traveling is trying out local culture in terms of food. And I guess, I would say I do miss out on some things being vegan. That's fine for me. That's my choice. What would be memorable? I think, where was I? I think I was in Bulgaria, or it might have been a different Balkan country, but I think Bulgaria in Sofia. Um, I was traveling. I was with a friend at this point. Actually, I wasn't on my own. We were traveling in a van, and yeah, I kind of didn't have high expectations in this area of the Balkan countries of vegan options being a huge thing because meat is a big part of their culture, and that's the way it is. That's fine. But yeah, we just stumbled into this tiny little, I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't. It was a restaurant, but it was strange. It was trying to give like traditional vibes, and it did. It did. But there was like nobody else in there. I think there was just maybe one couple, if that. I don't know. So that's always a bit like, oh, is this is this what we want or not? It's always more reassuring to have more people for sure. Anyway, we trusted it. We went with it, and in the end, it was great. Like I didn't expect there to be such a range of salads, which might sound really boring, but that's the whole point. They weren't just your boring vegan salad that you sometimes get offered when you eat out. There was every color, everything in them, and there were so many to choose from. Like, as someone who's vegan, more than two or three things on a menu is like wow. So it was really nice to be somewhere like that, to have so many options, and to just feel really, yeah, really satisfied, and to actually enjoy it and not come home like, that wasn't really worth my money, or we should have just bought some hummus in the shop and eaten it with bread on our own. It was really different and really colorful, and it was really nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the struggle of being a vegan and just having like dietary restrictions when you travel, that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, it's
But I
different for
do
sure.
I do applaud you for being a vegan.
Yeah, no, it's worth it. Like it's worked everywhere I've been. Of course, sometimes you have to plan a bit more or think, But no, it's cool. In Turkey and Georgia as well, there was so much good vegan food. So much so that when I went back home, or the next time I was home after that, I think it was before I came to Australia actually, I made like a big kind of goodbye meal for all my family before I left to Australia. And I based it purely on the vegan food I'd eaten in Turkey and Georgia. And it was again such a colourful feast, I suppose, and so many flavours that we don't really cook. I mean, English food is nothing to talk about, so of course, flavor wise, there was a lot more options. But everyone who ate it, my uncles and everyone, they really enjoyed the flavors, and you wouldn't think it was just vegan, or at least not how people think of vegan often. It's nice to be able to bring that home and show people that I'm eating good and I'm okay, and there's loads of options out there. Don't worry. It was really nice to do that before I left. Yeah.
Yeah, let's definitely break that myth that vegan food is boring or that it's all like salads and like vegetables. Like there's so much more. Like
There
you're
is.
basically just not eating animal products. Like that's it. And you
Yeah, there's
don't
a
need
lot
an
of other
animal
things out
product.
there.
Yeah, you don't need an animal product, especially meat with every meal. I'm not a vegan, but I definitely do, I think, prefer vegetarian most of the time,
Yeah.
um, over a meat option.
It's cheaper as well. It works for travel because you just save money. Your food, what you buy, will last longer because it's not fresh meat and milk, and yeah, I don't know. It works for me. Let's say I'm happy with it, and I think travel wise, you meet a lot of people on that kind of page, at least vegetarian and heading that way, just because it makes sense. It fits the lifestyle. You don't always have a fridge to keep cold stuff in, cheese and all these things. You just have a bag that you can throw some veg in and a tin of beans and cook a little pasta dish or whatever it might be. It's so doable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one last thing to add, not only is it better for the budget and your health, but also like safety wise. Like, because I don't trust meat
Yeah.
and like fish sometimes, or a lot of the time if I don't know the source or like if,
Yeah.
I don't know the behind the scenes of the restaurant that I'm at, I feel like
Yeah.
vegan is always the safer option.
No, for sure. You hear a lot of people getting sick after seafood or whatever it might be. Yeah, you definitely cut out that little bit of worry. Yeah, you're right.
And then my last question for you is, what is a dream destination for you?
Hmm. Um, that's a hard question. There's a lot of places I still want to go for sure. I suppose, like, obviously, I'm in Australia now and I'm going to spend quite some time here, I imagine. But there's definitely more of Europe that I've not seen that I really want to see. Even though, like, some people, would think Europe's boring compared to Australia and Asia and beyond. But for me, there's quite a nice comfort to Europe in a way. I mean, obviously, a lot of it's different, but I definitely need to see more of Scandinavia. It can be expensive, but I want to do a proper trip up there. And the other area I've not really been to in Europe would be the Baltic countries like Lithuania and Estonia and this area. And I think the nice thing about places like that are that they are slightly less touristy and popular, and you can really get a connection with local people, especially if you find a workaway that's in the middle of nowhere within safe areas and stuff. Obviously, not don't put yourself out there too much, but you can find a place and you can spend a while there and you can learn so much. And it's such a different way of life in some countries like this. It was the same for me in the Balkans when I was traveling there. And there's a lot to learn and a lot to say for people living a bit of a slower, different way of life. It's really nice to actually connect with people um, who aren't, in big cities with tourists coming through every day. They have time for you and you have time for them, and you can make really nice, meaningful connections. And like I say, learn a lot. So I think for sure some slightly more not unique, but some slightly different places I've definitely still got that I want to visit, as opposed to the big obvious options. Of course, they're cool too. I'd like to go everywhere that everyone wants to go, but for sure, some little random countries is still on my list, definitely to go to. Yeah.
Underrated destinations are definitely, I guess, it can offer you more meaningful experiences because it's not as glamorized on social media because you don't have
Yeah.
those expectations.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't really know what you're gonna go for, but you always get something good out of it. And I think, like I say, they appreciate it. They don't the locals, at least that I've met in these kind of places, they don't really understand necessarily why you're there. Like, you could be in Spain or somewhere, and yet you're in this random town in the middle of Bulgaria or wherever, and they really don't get it, but they love it and they want to share. They want to give it's so different. People are so generous and genuinely caring, as opposed to, like I say, in these bigger cities where people, it's just a hustle and bustle and everyone passing by and no one has time for anyone, and you just do your stuff and move on. It's so different, and yeah, it's a really really genuine like connection and experience I've had anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your time today, Ellie, and thank you for being the second guest of this season.
Thank you for having me. It was a really good chat. It's always fun to talk about it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Got a Case of Wanderlust podcast. Again, my name is Lydia, and you could find me on social media in the About section of this podcast. Please rate and review if you found value or insight from this, and I hope to see you in the next episode.